Good afternoon. My name is Erica Brewster, and I'm the director of the Demmer Memorial Library in Three Lakes. And I've been asked to take a demographics presentation that I usually do for a group called Leadership Oneida County. And usually I give it just as an oral presentation, but I have taken and put it into a PowerPoint, and I fleshed it out a little bit for you so that you as the design team can have a better understanding of some of the numbers behind our community. These numbers come mainly from the American Community Survey and other parts of the census, some referencing back to the 2010 census, but vast majority are from the annual updates as they're available. To begin with, I'll start with the first number most people see, and that is the number 3, as in Three Lakes. Well, the question always arises, well, there must be 3 lakes in the community. As it turns out, it's actually a chain of something like 26 lakes, more or less, depending on how you count the chain. Whether you count it as all navigable channels or whether you go by watersheds. So there's more or less, give or take, 26 to 30 lakes in the community. So the number 3, where did that come from? A little bit of history of the community, that when the railroad came into the area, the story goes that the surveyors set down a plot or set down a point and they started shooting survey lines. They wanted to go in as straight a direction as possible. And so they shot a line from the depot or from the location that is now the depot, or then became the depot. And they went out and they hit their first lake, which was Maple Lake. And they came back and they went out and they again hit another lake, this time Town Line Lake. And then they came back and they did a third time and they hit Rangeline Lake. This time they veered off a little bit more to the west and they managed to miss Thunder Lake, and they split the difference in pretty much the only way they could have to head north to Eagle River. So from there was a stump that became a railroad depot, and eventually the town acquired the location. The town acquired the name Three Lakes. So to begin with, the most obvious question is, what is the population and the basic number of population? Oneida County has a population of just about 35,600 as of the last update. The numbers here come from the annual estimates of resident population for minor civil divisions in Wisconsin. And so this looks at Three Lakes as a civil division as opposed to a census described area. So sometimes the numbers vary a little bit between those two numbers. Three Lakes is one of the major 3 municipal units in Oneida County. Rhinelander is the only city in the county, and it serves as a major employment, shopping, and services hub for the region. Minocqua and Three Lakes are towns with full-time police departments, libraries, school districts, and which serve the surrounding Oneida County and neighboring county communities. So we are one of the communities that has a school district that incorporates other towns in the area. The population of the municipality of Three Lakes has generally been around 2,100 since the 2010 census. So 2,100 people, fluctuating slightly around that number in the last 10 years. Looking at the change from 2010, we are looking at a minor change in Three Lakes, more significant drop in the city of Rhinelander itself. And one of the other things, I tend to call it in Oneida County, refer to Rhinelander, Minocqua, and Three Lakes as Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear when it comes to the types of services available. That Three Lakes is the smallest, but it does still have the services of Minocqua and Rhinelander. Median age is one of the major descriptor points for the community. Population of the entire state, but especially the northern tier, has been steadily aging in what was called the Silver Tsunami. Communities like Three Lakes have aged faster than the whole county, partly due to younger community members leaving the area for education and jobs, and the number of retirees moving into the community, often taking up full-time residence in a former seasonal home. So Rhinelander having the most services tends to have a younger population, more employment, and we'll see later, more access to a variety of housing. Minocqua and Three Lakes are similar in the vacation home, the seasonal homes, which again we'll see later, and are as a result quite a bit older. Rhinelander is quite a bit younger. The average median age for Oneida County is around 50 years old and has been aging, but the town of Three Lakes is obviously aging more quickly with a change of with an age increase to 7.4 of 7 years, almost 7.5 years over the last decade, to a median age of 60, which means half of the population is over the age of 60 and half of the population is under the age of 60. So looking at the population curve, you can see the distribution there. Again, in Three Lakes, a big spike around ages 65 to 74, and having the fewest young people of the three municipalities. So one interesting note is that as the 2018 American Community Surveys, the estimate is 10 children under the age of 5 in the entire community, and 66 between ages 5 and 9 years. So you can basically count them all. Though attendance at our community story hour, our library story hour, would suggest that the under 5 numbers are either actually higher or we're attracting children who do not reside in the town of Three Lakes. This, of course, impacts school enrollment when you have very limited numbers of children of school age. The larger proportion of working age adults lives in Rhinelander, so you see that peak in the demographic here, and then the greatest proportion of the population in Three Lakes being 65 to 74. And so after this, you see a fall off in that as health issues and general aging encourage many older adults to move out of the community to areas with better access to health care, perhaps closer to family. Our total households, including the percent with children under the age of 18. And as one would expect, there are proportionally fewer households in Three Lakes that have children under the age of 18 than in Minocqua or Rhinelander. Average household size in Three Lakes is about 2.2, and more notably that fewer than 1 in 10 households in Three Lakes have a child under the age of 18, again reflecting the older status of the community. On the flip side, we have a percent of households with a person age 65 or older, and in parentheses, the percent age 65 or older who are living alone. In the town of Three Lakes, we would again not be surprised to see that there is a higher percentage of homes with a person age 65 or older. And it's also not surprising to find that that is quite a bit higher than the other communities or the average in Oneida County itself. But what's also interesting to see is that fewer continue to live alone after the age of 65. So we don't have as many households with 65 or older living alone. This could be an indication of lack of access to services that help a person continue to live independently in Three Lakes compared to other Oneida County communities, or lack of close family or friends that would encourage a person over 65 to continue living alone in Three Lakes. For total housing units, this is a number that I always drive home to our Leadership Oneida County participants. Most people don't stop to think about this, but especially with this previous census that is just wrapping up now for the 2020 census, it's really interesting to think about census workers going and knocking on doors and finding them quote unquote vacant. It's not so much that homes are empty and for sale, bad real estate market. What it is instead is the number of homes that are unoccupied year round, or that people own a residence and vote and are full-time residents elsewhere and still own a home here. Half of the homes in all of Oneida County, 50%, are considered vacant. And then when you look at the three communities, Rhinelander, having the youngest population, the most services, has the lowest number of vacant homes. It's less of a tourist and less of a seasonal visitor area. But then in Minocqua and Three Lakes, you see that percentage increase dramatically. The housing units really tell us a big part of this Three Lakes story. As you compare the town population and total number of households in Three Lakes to the number of housing units alone, you'll notice, if we go back briefly, I don't know if I can. Okay, so the number of households in Three Lakes is 951, so about 1,000 households. Then we have 3,000 housing units. So about, as you see from the percentage, 2/3 of those housing units are actually vacant. They do not have a year-round household living in them. There are other, and then we do, the residencies of those vacant homes usually are from the Chicago area, Milwaukee area, Florida, or Arizona, plus, but those are the majority, plus a lot of other far-flung areas such as California and New Mexico and other spaces like that. We'll look more at those vacant homes and types of homes in next slides. So now look at the percent of housing units that are available as rentals. So rental availability would be looking at those that a person of lower income or younger families, young adults just leaving, would be able to rent before they are able to acquire the money necessary and capital necessary to begin building equity in their own purchase of a home. In Oneida County, we have a fairly limited rental rate as it is, and we have the majority of the rentals available in Rhinelander in the city area, and Minocqua and Three Lakes lag behind even Oneida County's average. So just about 1 in 10 homes, just more than 1 in 10 homes in Three Lakes would be considered a rental unit. So of the 951 occupied housing units in Three Lakes, 120 are renter occupied. For the types of structures and homes available, the percentage of one-unit detached structures, so standalone family homes most often. In the town of Three Lakes, we have the vast, vast majority. 9 out of 10 homes are actually just a single unit, a single structure house that is a standalone. That eliminates anything that might be a multi-unit, duplex, or apartment, or even mobile homes. So only 8%, which would be about 250 homes in Three Lakes, would be multi-unit, duplex, or apartments. This reflects the availability of single-person, affordable, or even short-term transitional housing in the community, and seeing that in Three Lakes it is much lower than would be available in the city of Rhinelander. One other thing that I usually bring up with the leadership in Oneida County is to look at the type of heating fuel being used in the community. In the town of Three Lakes, Minocqua, and Rhinelander, who is heating with a traditional heating fuel of wood? Wood is a traditional heat source in the area. More often it's secondary to utility gas or LP tanks. Many people who still have a wood furnace do not depend on it year-round. Yet Three Lakes has a larger percentage of homes that are dependent on it than Minocqua or Rhinelander. And just under 1/3 of our homes use LP. Heating with wood may indicate a traditional approach, but it also can indicate a financial barrier or lack of access through utility lines to upgrading to other fuel options. Renters, cost of housing. So we're going to look at affordability, which is measured most often by the total household costs put towards housing. This goes back as far as the 1930s, where 30% of household income was used as a benchmark to determine when housing costs had become a burden on a household. And it comes from the National Housing Act of 1937. There's been some tweaks to this over the years, but it is still part of the tiers. The U.S. Census reports percent tiers of housing costs for rental and mortgage and homes. And so in the community of Three Lakes, looking at where it is gross rent is 35% or more of household income. If somebody is paying rent, and again, we have a small number of rental homes, those paying rent are usually paying 60% of those are often paying more than 35% of their household income or more, which would be considered burdensome. And then, in fact, if you look at that 30% benchmark, we're looking at 2/3 of all renters, or almost 68% of renters in Three Lakes, have unaffordable or burdensome rent. Looking at gross housing costs, where this is mortgage and homeowners, where the gross housing costs are more than 35% or more of household income. In Three Lakes, just about, we're getting closer to 1/3 of those with a mortgage are paying more than 35% of their household costs towards their mortgage and household and taxes and other related. If we go to that 30% benchmark, which again comes from the National Housing Act of 1937, then it is just over 30% of homeowners that are considered unaffordable. So again, in that growing close to that 1/3 range where mortgages are unaffordable in the county. And that's the presentation I have for you today. I hope that gives you a good introduction to all the numbers, including the number 3 in Three Lakes, and helps you understand our community a little bit more. If you have any questions, I'm available by email at director@demerlibrary.org, and I look forward to seeing what the outcome of the design team and design process is. Thank you.